Hey y'all, Taco here. Do you like Borderlands? Do you like Dungeons and Dragons? If you do, then you may be interested in Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, a Borderlands spin-off title that takes place in a world of bunkers and badasses, the tabletop RPG of the Borderlands universe. It has all the fantasy tropes and jokes that you would expect as the bunker master, Tiny Tina, guides you through her demented fantasy world filled with unicorns, rainbows, Cheetos, and guns. Yes, lots and lots of guns. If you are unaware of the Borderlands series, it is a decade-long franchise. The mainline Borderlands games are first-person shooters with RPG-style loot similar to Diablo, where prefixes and creative attributes make each gun unique. Tiny Tina's Wonderland is no different. Every piece of equipment you find in this game, whether it be an automatic crossbow, a magic spell that shoots fireballs, or a giant war axe, each piece of loot is unique. However, Borderlands initially released 13 years ago, and the formula has not evolved much since. After the lukewarm reception of Borderlands 3 in 2019, does Tiny Tina's Wonderlands stand out enough to warrant a purchase? Let's take a look and see. Also, 2K provided a copy of this game to me on PC, but the opinions in this video are my own, and I'm not being compensated for them. I suppose the most important part of any Borderlands game is the gunplay, and Gearbox has many years of experience in fine-tuning the genre it helped pioneer. Tiny Tina's Wonderland improves on the formula just as past entries have done. This time you'll be able to pick between 6 different classes. These are the Berserker, Clawbringer, Graveborn, Spellshot, Spore Warden, and the Stabomancer. I played as the Clawbringer, a tankier build with a mighty hammer that I was able to throw and summon. I also had a little dragon companion that would follow me around and attack enemies with electric or fire breath. Just as you can in D&D, you eventually get the ability to pick a second class. Multi-classing is in this game, yeah. This busts the character build levy wide open. You'll have access to 2 different skill trees and 4 special class abilities to build your character. The unique class options coupled with the responsive and fun movement make the moment-to-moment gameplay fun and exciting. Now this time around, there are melee weapons you can equip as well as spells, armors, and wards. The melee system is a lot more useful this time around, as you can theoretically have your entire build centered around it. Most of the melee weapons you find, whether they are great axes or swords or just even big sticks, feel similar. I tended to favor the slower weapons for the higher damage, and the impact felt a little heavier to me. It just feels good smashing little goblins or mushroom men. The spells are the fantasy versions of grenades. They are on a cooldown and will sometimes have multiple charges or effects. Some grenades will sap the life out of your opponent, while others will summon a little grounded dragon head to fire projectiles at nearby enemies. There's a bunch of different effects that these can have. The armor is functionally the same as previous titles and usually includes a bonus to your skills, and the wards are just your shields. Now there is a lot of loot that you'll be picking up. It could be overwhelming for sure. I was running out of room in my inventory constantly until I said screw it, and I stopped picking up a lot of stuff. There are inventory upgrades that you could purchase, but they get expensive really quickly. If you're the type of person who wants to pick up and compare every gun, you're going to be spending hours in menus comparing stats, and usually those stats don't really matter all too much. The menus are lifted straight from Borderlands 3, and, well, they're clunky. I played with mouse and keyboard, and it was annoying to navigate my inventory. I can't say if it's easier with a controller or not. You have the ability to mark things as junk to sell them quickly, but that's also so time consuming. The worst part is this would be so simple to fix. I'd love to see the ability to just pick up items from the ground and simultaneously mark them as junk. That would leave more time for shooting, less time for inventory management, and more fun. Borderlands has always had eccentric characters to guide you along, and Tiny Tina's Wonderland is no different. The game takes place in Tina's own world, complete with a miniature landscape for your character to walk around. Your B&B companions, Valentine and Fret, are voiced by Andy Samberg and Wanda Sykes. They provide a hilarious and entertaining introduction and great commentary throughout the entire story.
Follow my lead and you'll be a great fate maker.
Your character, however, is simply known as the newbie, and you get to fashion the look and feel of him or her. This is a first for the series, and it's actually quite extensive. Good job on Gearbox for making such a great character creator. Now when you start out, you're quite limited on the number of character options, but as you play through the game, you'll find what seems like hundreds of new additions that you can use. The fact that you're always getting new customizations right up through the end of the game and during the post-game is such a treat. I went back several times just to see what I had unlocked and see what kind of crazy costumes I could make. The antagonist, the aptly named Dragon Lord, is voiced by Will Arnett. His smarmy comments to you are just silly as he tries to convince you that Tina is a dictator and a bad bunker master. Now, whether this is accurate or not, well, I'll just say that she is emotional yet dedicated to her world. This is a fundamentally smaller scale adventure, and while some people might not like that, I think it suits the narrative just fine. It's a lighthearted, fun adventure through a chaotic world where anything can happen, anything can change based on Tina's mood. It might not be the save-the-world spectacle of Borderlands, but it is a tightly knit, bombastic ride through an overactive imagination. The areas in Tiny Tina's Wonderlands are much smaller than previous games, but this is for the better. Rather than having vehicles to roam around a gigantic, mostly empty map, levels are located on the overworld. Using your miniature, you could walk around the overworld in a tilt-shifted perspective. The overworld is fun to explore, and it's quick to go from one destination to another. You also have town portals, another name for fast travel. At one point, you'll find a Cheeto blocking your path, and a new dungeon is improvised to remove it. There are dungeons, but I hesitate to actually call them that. To be honest, they're really just a series of 2 or 3 smaller arenas, a killing field to obliterate your opponents, if you will. Completing these smaller dungeons usually yields an item called a shrine piece. If you collect all the pieces to a shrine, you'll unlock a permanent passive buff, such as additional crit rate, movement speed, or experience. The larger areas, such as this one called Craw Mountain, are much bigger and delicately crafted. This mountain has many subquests to complete and characters to meet. You'll even find Claptrap here, brandishing a wooden chassis. He's vying to become a master blacksmith and has you gathering ore to make a magical item.
Fuse the ores, apprentice. Fuse the ores.
There's also a legendary weapon guarded by some sort of machination who just rambles on and on for 5 minutes. Then again, a 5-minute monologue is exactly the kind of humor that you would expect in a Gearbox game. Of course, there are many more wild stories like this throughout the game. Some of the quests you'll encounter include taking King Arthur's hand to pull out the Excalibur, a pirate who needs you to reassemble their robot bird, saving a town from an evil beanstalk with the fairy Punchfather, defeating a water goddess with a monster hunter named Garrett, and many more.
I am Garrett of Trivia.
While it feels so good to jump all over the well-designed maps and levels, it's a shame that the AI doesn't really hold up. I think this is partly to blame on the enemy design. See, since it's a fantasy world, a lot of enemies are melee oriented and they'll just simply charge at you. Big bad skeletons will stomp towards you, crabs will run straight towards you, dagger wielding bandits run at you. Everything just kind of runs straight towards you. And while there are enemies with ranged weapons and magic, I found that most of the time they didn't use cover and they just kind of stood around. Speaking of which, I was hoping the enemy designs were more inspired than they actually are. There are no skags, thankfully, but there are way too many skeletons. Most of the skeletons are not really interesting or unique in any way, and the same goes with most of the other enemy types. All you really need to do for most enemies is hold down the trigger of your gun and point at their head and they'll drop. However, it would have been nice to see more D&D inspired enemies. Imagine seeing minotaurs, basilisks that can paralyze you, beholders, gelatinous cubes, or my personal favorite, the gibbering mouther. Seriously, there's just so much potential for creative enemies here, and the buck stops with skeletons, pirates, serpents, a mimic or two, and crabs. Obviously there's more than that, but it just feels very limited overall. The enemy variety opens up more as you get closer to the end, but it's still disappointing. For example, I entered a town that was attacked by a giant evil beanstalk, believe it or not. This is a completely optional area that I didn't unlock until the end of the game, and I was excited because I thought there might be other types of enemies there. Turns out it's just more skeletons and dragons. Cue the disappointment. The humor can always be controversial in Borderlands and these types of games. On one hand, if there's too many jokes, the game feels like it's trying too hard and it can be cringy. If there's not enough, then the game loses that accessibility and charm from previous Borderlands games. In terms of Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, I'd say it lands most of its jokes actually. Other reviewers have said that the humor just doesn't let up and that brings down the experience. I'm not sure if I agree or not. I think the humor is well suited to this parody style game. It comes hard and fast pretty much throughout the entire game. However, I will say I was never terribly annoyed by it or by the jokes that didn't land. There were a lot of moments that really put a smile on my face just because it was such an outrageous situation, like when your ship is being blessed by the bard. Or when you're introduced to a new area that isn't dank enough, so Tina improvises and you get to watch the landscape transform in real time right in front of you.
I need a dank ranking. You gotta rank the dank.
It took me about 21 hours to reach the credits, and there are still many areas and quests that I haven't fully explored or completed. I was level 31 when I finished, and the max level is 40. In Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, the post-game revolves around the Chaos Dungeons. Chaos Dungeons are a series of repeatable encounters where you get to pick randomized effects during the run. The more detrimental the effect, the better loot you'll get at the end. For example, you might get an effect where there's no more second chances. When your HP hits 0, that's it, that's game over. But then to counteract that, every enemy will drop health potions when they die, and you can increase your base HP and ward. Chaos Dungeons really seem like a cool feature, but honestly I didn't dive too much into them. There's also a myth rank that gets unlocked at level 40. I didn't get the opportunity to try this either. From what I've read, it seems like it's another set of levels where you increase certain stats. However, when I play these games, I usually just play through the story or make another character rather than grinding the endgame. As I've been trying to do with my reviews lately, let's go over some pros and cons. Pros. The controls and gunplay are the best that they've ever been. Just moving and jumping around the levels is so smooth and fun, it makes you feel like you're an action hero. There are so many options for character builds. Character progression becomes an avalanche of options as you level up and unlock your second class. The humor, while it is laid on thick, I think lands more than it misses. Voice acting of NPCs is solid and held up by some great performances of well-known actors and comedians. Lots of options to customize your character, including voice, face, lots of colors, patterns, emotes, you name it. Much to my surprise, the game ran great on my PC at a mix of high, medium, and a couple low settings. I have an aging PC, going on 6 years right now. Specs are in the description. Cons. Inventory management is still a nightmare. There's no way to mark items as junk from the ground, so you spend lots of time in your inventory. It's just clunky and slow to scroll through. It's a pain in the ass. There's not much in terms of enemy variety. Plenty of skeletons and zombies, not enough cool fantasy monsters. Most of the enemies are dumb as a rock and will charge straight towards you, leaving their weak spots wide open for you to mow them down. Most of the time, their head is their weak spot. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is the multiplayer. It works as you'd expect, but I've encountered a lot of really annoying bugs. From my guns not firing, to my inventory not loading, to bad latency. There are a lot of problems that I'm hoping Gearbox will fix. In the end, I feel like Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is a step up from Borderlands 3. If you like the previous games in the series, you'll really like this one as well. Even if you're just a fan of shooters, looters, or fantasy games, I think this is a good choice. It's not perfect, but I did have a lot of fun with it. If you still have hesitations after watching this, I'd say listen to your gut and wait for a sale. You know your own interests better than I do. For others, roll a d20. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video review of Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Please consider leaving a thumbs up, sharing, commenting, or subscribing for more. Peace.